Oh, hi again. Um, let's talk about God's grace, shall we? Well, what is it? If you Google it, right, and this is what you've probably heard if you grew up in the church or around church people. If you Google it, Google AI tells you God's grace is, I'm trying to do the voice or whatever. It's unmerited favor, right? It is something, it is a gift, it is undeserved. And I'm like, okay, yeah. On the outside looking in, short. From a place of where you most identify with the language of your willpower and your self-effort, which is where a lot of us are found in the dark as it relates to God, is doing it ourselves. It's not that. If you hear like someone say, oh, like there's a grace on your life, what I hear now is, yeah, God's going to take you to a place that you could never get yourself to with your willpower, which will involve three components, it seems: your weakness and God's grace. Those things go hand in hand. You can look at it as your power, his power in your weakness. And so you must be led to a place where you are unable to go any further. And it seems to be that grace to me is it's a relationship that gets deeper and sweeter in time, right? And I wouldn't necessarily say that it is undeserved and unmerited. And I think one that would say that comes from the place where they have to balance their own scales. It's not this. It's this. You are brought into a new world, a new reality, a new realm, and that is grace, which is what empowers you to continue walking with God. It's grace that has you capable of being face to face with the Lord. It's grace that's going to take you to the next place. It's grace that has you in the place that you're in now. It's grace, it's grace, it's grace. And I feel like one of the things that God will do on your walk with him is, in a way of bringing an end to your self-effort, he shows you that grace is having you in a place and you are remaining in that place because of grace. And he will have you try to go back to something that you were like doing before, and you will find that you don't have the same understanding that you had before. And you actually find that it's like an illusion to try to go back to a place that you've already received an illumination in your understanding. Like basically, it's not just going back to a physical place. God takes you to a new place in your understanding, and that's his grace that then has you unable to go back to an old or former understanding. He illuminates your understanding, which makes it impossible for you to go back. It's an illusion to go back, but it's probably part of your process to try to go back, so that faith is tested in, oh, grace keeps me. Grace has me in this place, right? Like it's kind of this, what would you say? The yin and this yang or something, where it's like, if you think that your willpower has got you to the place that you're in now, then there's this crack in your understanding, which is, if I stop doing what I'm doing, then I'm going to go back to where I was. Well, you're basically saying that what you're doing now is keeping you from where you were and who you were. But his grace comes in and says, no, I have illuminated your understanding, which is taking you to a new place, so that you were unable to open that door back into the old things of what you used to know and what you could see before. Basically, grace has illuminated your understanding, and now you cannot go back to what you understood before. And in this place, it's not self-effort or willpower that keeps you where you are. It's you seeing that you've been brought to a place where now it is your time to understand grace, and understand that it is his power in your weakness, to understand that it is going to be his determination, his everything fueled by love in him, to take you from one place to a new place. But it's not just a physical place, it's in your understanding of yourself and him. Like, grace has me make this video. It's certainly not willpower or self-effort, because I'm not, the more I make a video and I see like, oh man, like the way that self-effort and willpower works is that there's a means to an end. There's a you do something to get a certain result. Well, I'm living by grace, which empowers me to do things I don't understand, because I'm not living to get that result. Because I'm no longer the one that he is looking to, and I'm looking to myself to produce that result. And in that place, I am free. The truth is setting me free, because I'm no longer under the influence of self-effort that says, I got myself here, so I must keep myself here. And then into a future standpoint, I must get myself to that place. It's like, no, that's an old language. You're talking about the language of self-effort. You're talking about the language of the trust that is in your self-reliance. This and grace will not mix. And so he will have grace that empowers you to walk on the narrow road with him long enough that the self-effort and the self-reliance gets exposed and judged and actually becomes too heavy for you to carry, right? It becomes the end of the road for your self-reliance. So grace puts it in the grave. Grace raises you up. Grace has you walk with him, empowers you on the narrow road walk. So then you're not really required in the way that you thought you were supposed to be required. I've talked about this many times, but I feel like this is a very fascinating thing, because grace can be like a slippery little bastard. You don't really know like what it is. People just like, oh, hey, it's this or it's that. It's like, it's undeserved. It's a gift. And it's just like, that's so broad though. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess, buddy. But like, when you were brought into the language of grace, you find that his love is like, no, I am God in your life. If there's a grace on your life, like, he does not begin a good work and not finish that good work. You were caught in the crosshairs of his love that says grace is going to empower you in the place that you cannot empower yourself, to get you to a place that you could not get yourself to in your willpower, which will then free you from yourself and your self-reliance, right? The truth will come in and set you free as grace illuminates your understanding. He has me in a place that I cannot have myself. And so then he is surely setting me up for a hope and a future that does not depend upon me keeping myself doing things. And so the end of religion, right? The end of practices. I'm not looking to me to practice anything. I am free from practices. I am free from looking to myself. And because of that, there's no measuring anymore. It's like I can't really relapse because I'm not keeping myself sober. You know what I mean? If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. I feel like this is something that you have to come to know, because like it's like it really is like hearing a new language, and at first you don't understand it because you come from this old language, which is you do it yourself, and maybe God will help you. God helps you do it yourself. But grace is in the place that you can't help yourself. I'm going to be the power that works through you, in you, and encompasses your life. You're just like, well, what do I do? You're just like, well, you basically just wake up and surrender. You just wake up and you say, okay, your grace is sufficient in my weakness. Your grace is more powerful than my willpower, my self-effort. Your mercy seems to come every morning. It's just something that like, you know how water like erodes a rock? You know, you're like the rock, right? And that water flow is every single day. And he can turn up the pressure of that water to mold that rock in a very specific way. What's not going to turn off the water is you. You're the rock. Like, you're just going to get like molded by the water and the water pressure. And you really just learn how to be a rock. You just learn how to be like in the flow of that, in the river of that. And you start to see, oh, this is not just a one-time thing where grace is giving me like a gift that I don't deserve. He's bringing me into a new way of being that does not rely upon myself. A new way of being that where I am truly free from myself. A new way of being where he is the producer in my life. And my weakness is perfect for his power. And my weakness is perfect for his grace. Those things go together. It's just like, did you get like, Like, what if someone says, like, how did you get to where you are? You're like, well, it was his grace, but it was also like me. Like, I was fully there, and it was actually more uncomfortable and more difficult because I came from this old language where I was supposed to do it myself, and I was met with what I believed about my weakness, which is the shame. But in that place, he's like, my grace is sufficient in your weakness. You're like, but I've always looked to myself to be strong. Like, I thought I got myself here. And then like repetition strengthens and confirms and actually breaks down your old understanding until it's just dust. And you look at it and you're just like, oh, like you really have me here in this place. Like, you really have orchestrated this to be this way. Like, I even think he uses the devil as like his own, like his butler or something, his like personal assistant, in assisting you to get the best like outcome for yourself, like molding you. Like I would say that his grace is the spiritual warfare that actually comes in and judges, like has you be judged in a way. Like it's all him. You see, like, oh, you've been pulling the strings this whole time. Like, it is the end of self-management, is the end of practices, and it's the end of being able to be like, I can go back to an old thing. You only believe that you can go back to an old thing if you got yourself to a new thing. That's going to be judged in you. That's going to come up in you. He's probably going to allow spiritual warfare to come in squeeze that mindset out of you and onto the surface for him to then judge it in the light and say, no, it is my grace that is sufficient in your weakness. You cannot go back to that old thing because I have you on a trajectory and we're getting to the place that I'm having you go on time because of how much I know you, because of how good a father I am, because I know my children, because I know what I am doing, because I am not stumped. I am not limited. All of this, I'm just like, all right, God, whatever. Because whenever you're like the person that there's a grace on your life, it doesn't feel great. You think it feels great to be weak and feel weak all the time? No, dude, it sucks. It really does. But there's a freedom that is being unlocked in a place in me that wouldn't otherwise be unlocked if I was still running the show or believed that I was running the show. And so I like to look at grace as like having a relationship to a new language. You don't understand it right away because you come from this old language, which is looking to yourself. But the new language is looking to him. And his grace has you look to him. And his grace has you face to face with him. And his grace is the power empowering you to continue to walk this narrow road with him. You can only walk the narrow road with God by his grace. And in a lot of ways, it looks like you being carried by him, right? There's only two footprints in the sand because he's carrying you. The places that you get to, it seems you're just like, I could never get myself here. I can't go back to where I was because I did not get myself to this new place. I can't go back to this old place. In that place where you feel weak in that, there's this new level of freedom that's unlocked as you see, I can't mess this up. I can't get myself to where he is taking me sooner, but I can't get there late. So any word that says that you can or whatever, to me, it's just like, well, you just don't understand his grace yet, right? The fear of the Lord has not set in to show you, no, I am the potter and you are the clay. And it is my love determined for you to be successful because I say you are successful. That is going to put you into the position that I'm going to put you in because of who you are to me, because of how capable I am in your weakness to produce everything there, meaning you're not required in the way that you thought you were required. And the world certainly doesn't operate on grace. And so to the world, grace is foolishness, right? And like I said, it can be a slippery little bastard because it's like invisible or something. You wake up and you're just like, you feel like he's like left you hanging. But like you look back on it, and you're just like, you didn't leave me hanging. You met me with your grace, but it was like invisible. It just had me remain. It didn't have me go and do a bunch of things because the grace was sufficient in my weakness where those things that I felt like I had to do, like a Hollywood movie and like the main superhero guy goes and does all the things. He's like, well, no, this is God and man. God does all the heavy lifting. So it's not a Hollywood movie about man's capabilities. And so it looks like you wake up and you're just like, you left me hanging. But he's like, no, I met you with my grace that empowered you to live another day. Like, I'm getting you to a place that you can't get yourself. So I'm stretching you past what you were capable of. It's like the underworld of things, but it's like what's actually substance there. It's the things of God are like just so foreign to the things of man. It's just so backwards, man. It really is, because his power is in your weakness, and so it doesn't look like me going and doing a bunch of things for God, and God's given me the power to do those things. I'm like, It's actually what you're not actually doing activity-wise that actually shows just how powerful he is, as he's changing things in here and all the things that man can do nothing about. We're all about cosmetic changes. And in the cosmetic changes, there's a lot of hype. It's very evident in the way that it looks. You're like, oh, wow, you made a physical glow up. It's like God doesn't do glow ups like man does glow ups. You'll glow up, but you're going to... He just seems to be really good at this whole thing. All right. So that's my whole take about grace. All right. Because if someone made a comment on my video and they're just like, I can't get back to the place that I was in before, and I've tried. I'm like, yeah, it's an illusion to go back. But I think it's going to be part of your process to try to go back. Because here's the kicker. It's like, your self-effort comes to an end. And then so if your self-effort is trying to keep you from going back to an old life, well, then your self-effort is going to be judged and it's going to come to an end. And so you're going to like fall back into what you would consider your old life, but you're going to have a new life in your old life. And so your old life is not really your old life. So even if you're doing all of the old things, you're not in that place. Does that make sense? Probably not, right? It's like we think that going back to a physical place is going back like in time to where we were. But no, your understanding showed where you were. But you're going to have a new understanding, picking up old things. So the old things are not quite what they were before, which shows you his grace that has illuminated your understanding and brought you to a new place in your understanding before you get to a physical new place in your understanding. So even if you pick up the old things that you used to pick up, which I think that you will, it's part of my story, because self-effort was keeping me from not picking up those old things, and he zaps the self-effort, and then I pick up the old things, and I'm like, oh, I've gone back. And he's like, no, you haven't gone back anywhere. We're going forward. We're going through this thing. It just looks like a slingshot. I'm like pulling you back. So it looks like you're going back, but really it's my grace that's empowering the slingshot to pull back as I traject you forward. God's weird, dude.